those peace negotiations really aren't working out too well, especially with videos like this. No, Donald, stop it! This says, of course, we have now entered into a new level of insanity with geopolitical and foreign policy news updates that are of key critical importance that I just think a lot of people aren't taking serious enough, especially with what just happened with Vladimir Putin's announcement of a surprise ceasefire that it looks like the Ukrainians are saying no to. What's going on, as there are still some larger questions about a potential energy infrastructure attack that some people are trying to blame Russia for. What's really going on here? Well, let's take a deep dive and take a look at the latest developments here when it comes to the biggest proxy war between the East and the West that is unraveling right in front of our eyes. This, as now 50 plus million people are without power in Spain and Portugal, with some parts of France also experiencing very similar pressures against their energy infrastructure grid, and it looks like some people are trying to make this all about Russia, as Volodymyr Zelensky responded to this tragedy unfolding right now in Spain, Portugal, and parts of France by saying, quote, "I spoke with the Prime Minister of Spain about the emergency situation in the energy system. No matter what happens, we are always ready to assist and support our friends. Over the past years of war and Russian attacks on our energy systems, Ukraine has gained significant experience in overcoming any energy challenges, including blackouts. Our specialists can join recovery efforts. I offered such assistance to Spain. I instructed Ukraine Minister of Energy to act as swiftly as possible. Our technical experts are ready to help." And that's a really nice gesture here that a lot of people are now looking at with what is developing in Ukraine, as Ukraine might be able to help, since Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, just announced a surprise 72-hour ceasefire for the Ukrainian war, which he is proposing to do during the 80th anniversary of the Soviet Union's victory in World War II. Now, there's a lot of history there that my family talks about that they're not too happy about personally themselves here. But Putin announced this at a meeting of the Council of Legislators in St. Petersburg, ordering 72 hours where there's going to be no fighting, no war, as he is now asking Kiev and Ukraine to, of course, meet this demand to end all hostilities from May 8th through May 10th, as, of course, this would include all fighting in the region that would allow troops to finally relax, to finally be able to, of course, stop this nonsensical, insane action that has been going on for far too long, as the Ukrainians are now initially responding to this by saying, yeah, we're not going to stop this just for a parade here. And for the Russians, it is a very prominent day. It is a very big kind of historical event that they like to go through, that they like to talk about, that they like to celebrate. And clearly, the celebration used to be a lot of tanks and military hardware being kind of driven through the streets of Moscow. Ever since this war in Ukraine, we have seen less and less military hardware promoted and shown on the Russian state kind of propaganda channels that would show their vast military power. We've seen Korea do similar kind of, North Korea do similar kind of deals here. But Zelensky's response here, I think, is important because, again, he said, real peace, can't wait for Putin's parade, as it looks like Zelensky is initially saying no to this ceasefire idea. As he says, quote, "We value people's lives and not parades. We believe that the world believes that there is no reason to wait for May 8th. The ceasefire should not for a few days, only to resume the killing afterwards." He called for a full and unconditional ceasefire for at least 30 days to actually create a chance for, quote, real diplomacy, as the Russians here have been warning, saying, yeah, we're not going to agree to a 30-day ceasefire here, since it would allow the Ukrainians to regroup, refortify their efforts from the Russians that are invading and going after their territory, specifically in the Donbass region, as the Russians have responded by saying, hey, The ball's in Kiev's court here, and they specifically blame the West for fueling this conflict, growing it, and expanding it, as the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov came out and said, yeah, we're totally open to peace. It's just, quote, the Russophobic friends in France, Germany, and Britain who are keeping the war alive. And we have seen a lot of very interesting statements, especially from the Germans there, that weren't treated the best by the Soviet Union during this anniversary, this 80th anniversary that the Russians will be celebrating there. The horror stories of what people had to go through under Soviet occupation are very real, and something that, of course, my family keeps telling me about personally, about the horrors. My grandma's still alive. She keeps telling me about the insanity that she had to deal with under Soviet occupation, which she said was just as bad, if not worse, than the German occupation that literally took the lives of my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather. She lost both of her parents when she was like 8 years old. She was sent off to a work camp, and she still tells me that's what the Germans did to us. The Soviets were just as bad. And there was a culling, there was a purging of a lot of Polish intellectuals. A lot of this was also done under the Banderos Ukrainian faction, by the way. A lot of the German atrocities that were committed against Poland were committed in collaboration with the Ukrainians, with one specific political right-wing figure in Ukraine that the Ukrainians still keep cheerleading and supporting. As Poland has done, I think, more for Ukraine than any other country, and yet there's still Ukrainians cheerleading Banderos that tortured, slaughtered, and just took the lives of, the estimates are huge, hundreds of thousands of Polish people, innocent Polish people, during that particular conflict here. So there's a lot of history there. But before getting into what Germany is doing and what they're saying about this specific big kind of endeavor here, we wanted to pay the bills around here, and one way we pay the bills around here is, of course, to promote the shirts that I'm wearing. One of them is, I think, a perfect shirt to wear now, with a nice picture of Ron Paul saying, "If I told you so" was a person. You could get that shirt on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. You probably could get it by typing in Ron Paul into the search here. Bada bing, bada boom. It is available here for purchase just for $32. I think we have a cheaper version that's available just for shirts, and we have a bunch of different shirts. We just released 2 really funny ones that are definitely meant to help, regrow the dwindling populations in the Western world. We have this seed oil-free blank for $9,000 load. And then we have this microplastics-free blank for $10,000 a load. Great shirts that you could definitely get on thebestpoliticalshirts.com that definitely will raise some eyebrows and start some very interesting conversations. I'm also a big component of the LGBTQ, but the T stands for something else. So does the Q. So does the B, so does the G, and so does the L. But that's my own kind of just particular representation that I like to share with the general public to start conversations and to let people know that they are not alone. This is a great way of just doing your own forms of lazy activism and a great way to meet like-minded people. So if you're an introvert, if you like talking to people, want to talk to more people, this is the perfect way to really start the conversation. Thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Click the description because there's some shirts that we just cannot show you here on this particular broadcast that you could see here just by clicking the link. And, of course, checking out all the great, wonderful stuff, as we have a lot of anti-war shirts, as that's one of our key principles here, as the corporate media loves war. And it looks like the Germans really love war, too, as right now we got some very interesting statements from the German government that is coming out and saying that the peace proposal from the United States is akin to capitulation to Russia, as we have people saying Trump's going too far with territorial concessions, and Crimea will always be Ukrainian here. As right now, Donald Trump is in the midst of very tough negotiations right now, and the negotiations aren't going anywhere. As we had our vice president, we had our defense secretary, we had our secretary of state, all kind of announced, along with Donald Trump, we're going to be walking away from this deal if you guys don't say yes to this. As Marco Rubio now says that there has been a little bit of concessions made But the deal is still not there. That's the latest information that we're getting surrounding all of this. As I found Marco Rubio's comments here very kind of important for this discussion. Here's what he had to say.
President Trump is about to mark his 100th day in office. It comes as a key campaign promise is to end the war in Ukraine, and against the backdrop of that extraordinary meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky. Mr. Secretary, is Russia and Ukraine now closer to a deal in the wake of that meeting?
Well, I think they're closer in general than they've been any time in the last 3 years, but it's still not there. And as I said, and he has said, and others have said, he's done an extraordinary job. At the highest levels of our government, the president has put out everybody you can imagine, Ambassador Witkoff, myself, the National Security Advisor, the Vice President, been involved and engaged in this effort to bring the two sides closer so we can have path to peace. By the way, that's something that should be celebrated. He's trying to end a 3-year war that has no military solution, where every day people are dying, especially on the Ukrainian side, in many cases civilians and children, as we've seen the images over the last few weeks. He's trying to bring this war to an end. And we've made real progress. But those last couple steps of this journey were always going to be the hardest ones, and it needs to happen soon. We cannot continue, as I said, to dedicate time and resources to this effort if it's not going to come to fruition.
Yep, this as the Russians are planning a major offensive soon, according to the latest kind of troop movements that have been developing and happening right now. That also is pretty key and pretty important here to kind of look at in hindsight. As, the Ukrainians, they don't have the manpower. The United States cut off a lot of their support. The Germans are specifically saying, no, don't capitulate. Keep fighting the Russians. And then the Germans are asked, okay, what are you going to provide? And the Germans are like, we'll give you some weapons. We'll give you some of hardware at a cost, at a loan, as, of course, most Europeans feel that Ukraine is not getting enough of weapons from Western support. And you look at this through the poll numbers. Then, when those same people are asked, hey, what should your country increase the support that they're given? Vast majority of them are like, no. I want somebody else to do the work for me. And the United States used to do the work for them. The United States used to be like, okay, we'll give you the weapons, we'll support you guys, we'll socialize Europe, we'll allow Europe to, change the population, to demographically introduce new people into the population. We'll create socialism for all the migrants coming from the Middle East and Africa. We'll make sure you guys have enough money for that to replace your population. We'll make sure you have welfare, so we will support your warfare state. Donald Trump is saying, no, I'm not socializing this. Listen, and the Europeans are like, no, you have to. We have to pay for these migrants somehow. We're not getting rid of our welfare. You're going to have to pay for our war state, and we're going to call for more war, and we want more war. And Donald Trump's like, why? They're like, because Russia's bad. Russia's going to come and attack you. And then Trump's like, stop lying. What are you talking about? Like, that's crazy. That would be insane if they tried to do something like that. Like, stop it. This is where we are at right now. So the German, French, and UK government are some of the biggest proponents of this war here. And they are the individuals that, of course, are talking the tough talk, but they're not the ones fully paying for it. They're not the ones who want to pay for it. They're not the ones who, of course, are willing to put skin in the game here. That's just the reality of the current situation. Now, this war is awful. There should be everything done to prevent this war from being perpetrated. And Donald Trump being attacked for trying to have peace here is incredulous. It's insane. Like, he said he was going to do it day one. Why didn't he do it day one? Because it's an extremely complicated scenario and situation with long historical ties and agreements and deals that, of course, have been not followed through by both sides of the conflict and the fighting here. There's a lot of really bad blood here, okay? All right? There's a lot of really bad history here. As Ukraine, throughout its history, is not only just the breadbasket of Europe, but it's the place where a lot of people have compared it to kind of the Afghanistan of Europe, where this is where a lot of the fighting always happens, and the soil is filled with a lot of life loss here. And it's definitely no different now, as the majority of the fighting between the East and the West is happening now. The United States cut off a lot of their aid and support to Ukraine. They're on their own. They can only last so much. And yes, Ukraine's going to have to make some concessions here. Now, what's the deal that the Germans are saying is capitulating to Russia? We'll describe that deal in a little bit here, but let's finish off with the comments here from Marco Rubio.
So the last week has really been about figuring out how close are these sides really, and are they close enough that this merits a continued investment of our time as a mediator in this regard.
What is the timeline? Are you talking weeks or months? How long are you willing to give them to reach a peace agreement?
Well, I always think it's silly to set a specific date or whatever, but I can just tell you that almost 100 days into this presidency, the president has dedicated a tremendous amount of time and energy to this. And we think we brought the sides closer than they've been in a very long time, but we're not there yet, and it needs to start happening. We need to start, I think this is going to be a very critical week. This week is going to be a really important week in which we have to make a determination about whether this is an endeavor that we want to continue to be involved in, or if it's time to sort of focus on some other issues that are equally, if not more important in some cases. But we want to see it happen. There are reasons to be optimistic, but there are reasons to be realistic, of course, as well. We're close, but we're not close enough.
Yeah. An important kind of notion here that I think is worth paying attention to is those are very important words. And the heated rhetoric from Germany, France, and the UK aren't helping here. Because, again, they're talking a tough talk here. They're not willing to back it up. They don't want to do their own fighting. They want everyone else to do the fighting. They want everyone else to pay for their geopolitical conundrums that they found themselves in, as they literally are like dependent on Russian energy. And they start to get rid of their nuclear power reactors like they are in Germany. And now we're dealing with crazy situations like we're seeing in Europe right now, in Spain, Portugal, parts of France, where they just announced a few days ago, oh, we're all on renewable energy. They described this on April, what was it, 16th? Like, oh, yeah, we're excited to announce we're all renewable. Yeah. Also, I'm sorry, but Zelensky's comments here saying that Putin's proposal here for a ceasefire is just an attempt at manipulation, them automatically just saying no, I think is a big, grave mistake here. I mean, there's no reason to be hard-headed. Giving your troops a break, especially the Ukrainian troops that have been stretched very thin, that are constantly fighting, that are barely getting any leave here. If you're on the front lines now and you're fighting for your country, you're fighting for Ukraine, like the guy doesn't even want to give us a 3-day break. Like, I would accept it right away. Hey, this is an olive branch. This is a sign to stop and just relax for 3 days and to live life knowing that, yeah, we don't have to sacrifice people. We don't have to take the lives of people. We don't have to lose people. We could actually just like relax and take it easy for 3 days. That's something that you would want to say yes to as a sign of good faith here. I think Putin is trying to reach out and say what you may about him, but it's Zelensky here that time and time again, according to Donald Trump, is the one saying, no deal. Not going to do it. Not going to comply. No, not going to concede anything. The Germans like, yes, we got your back. Yeah, they don't. They're just very two-faced about this. Because the deal right now is that the Ukrainians specifically get nuclear power that they're going to have to share with Russia. They have access to a major river. They get some land back that the Russians are currently occupying right now. They get security protections. They get energy and financial deals to help rebuild. So they get money, they get protection, they get some land, they get the river in exchange for Russia also opening up economic ties with Europe, being able to sell their energy, which they're desperately needed for Europe right now, which would help out a lot of poor people in Europe right now. But Russia gets to keep 4 regions and 4 territories inside of Ukraine. Territories that have been contested ever since 2014, that there have been skirmishes and battles in between for a very long time that have been ongoing in a very awful, horrible way and have led to tremendous amounts of life loss. Now, the Ukrainians are saying that's my territory. The Russians are saying there's Russian speakers there. It's our territory. To me, the deal is fair. The Germans freaking out here saying, no, bad deal. I think they're just prolonging the inevitable here. I think the United States is making the right decision here. I think if cooler heads prevailed and the peace deal is made, is signed, is agreed to, the world and life would be way better for Slavic men, for Europe, and for everyone involved here. And for some reason, the corporate media and some government autocrats are saying no. That to me is evil. If you think it's wrong, share this video with your friends and family members. I appreciate you guys very much. Get a t-shirt on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Speak your mind, fear yourself. I love you guys. Stay tuned for more, all here exclusively on youtube.com/wearechange.